I charged up the car last night to 100%, the charger, unplugged, so it's been sitting all night. Would have got a bit colder. It's 13 degrees now, and I'm planning to go for a drive out to Deeside, to Braemar, out into the hills near Balmoral Castle, and just see the difference between a climb up, and then I'll get a charge there, and then coming back, and just see what the difference is going up into the hills and then coming back down. And I'll also try driving quite efficiently, and maybe do a little bit about what I'm doing when I'm doing that, to get the score of like 99 out of 100 on the Dubry over here, which at the moment is saying nothing because I've just reset everything, so it's ready to go. All right. I will put into the sat nav actually where we're going. I think it's about 57 miles, something like that. Oh, let's have a look and see if they've got a charging station already in here. Hello. Braemar, Ballata, that'll be the one. Yeah. Well, no, they don't have the Braemar ones in there, clearly. But there are two. There's a 22 kilowatt and a rapid charger there. Forget that. We will just go to Braemar. Boom. Centre, that'll do. And how many miles is it? Yeah, 57 miles or so. I don't know which way this is going to want to take me, but I know which way I'm going to go. Now, what I'm not sure... No, that just changes the... On the Citroen, it has down the bottom here what your elevation is all the time. It tells you how high you are, which is very handy. And I am not sure that this one does that. Let's have a look. Settings. It's usually somewhere where it tells you how many satellites there are and that kind of thing. Nope, that doesn't look like it. Oh, I'm sure somebody else here is saying, oh no, it's there, you can find out there. Of course, I've never really looked for this before. I was just interested to see how the difference in height. I suppose I could do it on my watch. My watch will tell me. Is it under here? Clock, blah, 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 blah. Status and information. GPS status. Northwest. It doesn't tell you on this one. That's a shame. Configure. What does this do? No, that's just how it's displayed. Bummer. Right. Anyway, we are pretty much near sea level, I think, here where we're at, and we'll be heading up, basically. Right. Let's go. I'm in traffic here, and I'm really just letting the car creep along and leaving a bit of gap between myself and the car in front, and in doing this I don't have to touch the brake, you see, so I'm just letting the car cruise along. Now the temptation, as everyone else is doing, is you're right up the rear bumper of the car in front, so you're constantly gas brake as the traffic moves on. If you just leave a little bit of extra space, then you can just cruise along while they're doing their, you know, gas brake, using up way more energy. I'm just 4 or 5 miles an hour, just creeping along and keeping up with them, but just keeping that gap. So none of this is rocket science, really. I'm going to have to come off here, and I still haven't touched the brake. I've just put it into neutral, you see, and then I'm holding it on the brake, into drive, let the car just creep forward, little bit of gas, just to catch up here, so that by the time I get to the roundabout there won't be a car in front, is the idea. And if he goes now, which is what I hope, then he's gone, and there's another car just come in. I'll just gently ease on past. So I only had a tiny bit of brake there, and of course it's not any slower or anything, because you're dependent on the traffic around you, in front of you, and a lot more efficient. So here, as I'm just picking up speed, there's no one in front, there's just quite a way behind there's a truck, so I am in fact, let me scoot to, there you go, 8 kilowatts, 6, 7, 8 kilowatts, kind of keeping it here to that one bar up, to accelerate up. The limit along here is about 30. I'm just coming to the end of that, to the national speed limit bit, so I will let the car creep up in speed, but trying to just keep that acceleration part, you know, not flooring it, obviously. That just uses way more energy to do that. And this is quite a slowy road, this one along, lots of wind bends on it, but I'll just let just letting the car naturally pick up speed as I'm going along. And then try not to use the brakes unless you absolutely have to, so that leads to a bit more fun around the corners, because you are trying to carry as much speed through the corners as you possibly can. And we're actually catching up with a slower car ahead of us. Two slower cars ahead of us. Okay, that's one away. I was in luck there. There wasn't another car coming the other direction, so I didn't have to brake for going around. Of course, he was very late signalling his intention to pull over. So if there had been another car coming, I'd have just slammed on the brakes. So the other thing, when you're trying to drive and saving a lot of energy, and there was a tractor just pulled off ahead, so I did have to just touch the brakes there to slow down for this traffic. But you're trying to conserve, basically you're trying to conserve energy is through as many different ways as you can, and in order to do that, so you might think Oh, nice AC behind me here, AC Cobra. I'm sure it's not the real thing. It's going to be a model, but I actually kind of want to slow down just to hear that pull past. If it's got a nice big V8 in it. The thing is, like an electric car will regen, so it'll regenerate electricity, which is fantastic, and yeah, you want that because you're gaining energy back. But if you're actually trying to save energy and drive most efficiently, you do not want to regen. You want to conserve the energy, and you've put the energy into the car moving, getting this mass, this 1.5 tons moving. You want to keep it moving, because although you're going to be regenerating when the car slows down, taking some of that potential back. The AC is pulling off behind me. Bummer. You always got wastage that's involved in that. So the regen, you do not get as much energy back as you put in getting the car up to that speed, for instance. So it's better to try and maintain that. So what does that mean? It means a lot of coasting, and now that is why I like, if I'm on driving with a kind of more of an eco mind, I do put it into eco mode. And it's and the only reason for doing this, and I know I've mentioned this in other videos, is because of how it changes the mapping of the throttle. So some folks say, oh, I don't like that because the throttle doesn't have any, you've got it deadens the throttle. Well, yes, exactly, that's the whole point. And that's why I like it, because it gives you more, there's more play, there's more travel in kind of all the initial parts, because it's taken off a whole chunk of the upper reaches of the power that's available, unless you kind of click through the kick down button. Then it gives you more room to play with that area where you are coasting. So you're just holding the throttle open enough. I don't know why I'm using throttle, you know what I mean, the accelerator, the power pedal. You're just holding it down enough that you are, it's not regenning, but you're not losing speed, or you're just keeping it at that right point. Now, so that I find it easier to modulate that when it's in eco mode. If you do need power for any emergency, you can always floor it and you get full power anyway. But that is my reason for using eco mode. It's 15 degrees today. I don't have the heating on at all, don't need it. So it's not really to reduce the energy consumption from that, it's more about what it does to the throttle. So that's my reasoning there. Anyway, but coasting. So on a country road like this one, wherever you can, I'm always kind of lifting off the throttle slightly, just to see if, for keeping that same speed I'm at, I can do it with a little bit less gas, or what am I talking about? A little less electrons, fewer electrons indeed. So that's it. Now I'm regenning here because I'm just coming up to a junction, and I need to slow down more. Oh, and there's traffic at it, so I'm going to end up probably having to brake, which is a bit of a bummer. Are you guys able to pull out? That's one pulling out. Can the other car pull out? Oh, it is. I've not had to touch the brakes yet, and I can do it without touching the brakes. Sweet. So it's all about anticipation. It's about just looking ahead and thinking, right, what can I do here without having to touch those brakes? Just use the energy the car has to keep rolling, and that's how to do it. going into Bankery, and so a bit of traffic here. So I'm just doing the same thing, basically. And now the thing I always notice when I'm driving, trying to be driving with my eco hat on, there are a few things. One of the things, if you're on a country road like I was just on, it's trying to remove the temptation to, and this is quite a hard fought one, of accelerating out of bends. So I grew up kind of first cars was a Citroen Diane, which is basically a 2CV, and an MG midget, so a front wheel drive with no power, and then a rear wheel drive MG, and you learn two very different skills driving those cars. With the Citroen, you had to maintain speed at all costs because you only had 29 horsepower to play with. So corners, you ripped into them, often still at full throttle, and just kept on going because you desperately trying not to scrub off speed. You're trying to keep as much momentum as possible going. So front wheel drive, you tend to bundle into a corner and quite fast. Rear wheel drive, the kind of technique which usually works a bit better is braking into the corner, slowing down before the corner and then accelerating hard out of the corner. So slow in, fast out, and that still is kind of a little bit ingrained. Is whenever you slow down for a corner, like naturally, I want to floor the throttle, maybe an exaggeration, but I want to accelerate out of the bend to kind of immediately pick your speed back up. So you're trying to force yourself not to do that. So just after, if you've scrubbed off a bit of speed on the bend, just then let the car gently build that speed back up, rather than adding more throttle immediately to get your speed back up. And I find that really quite difficult because my natural tendency is to even if I'm trying not to do it, I look at the wee thing, and it tells me, it shows on the wee chart that I've added throttle to come out of that corner. It's a weird one. It's built in, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone if I'm not driving in an eco mind. So I don't have it set in eco, and I'm just trying to get places of pushing on and want to get moving, all that kind of thing. And then when I'm in an eco mode, as I am at the moment, it really is noticeable that you just don't get anywhere that much faster. So for instance, on that country road, which is about 10, 15 miles, something like that, all down this country road, by the time you get to the T-junction at the end of that road, you're just immediately behind. Even though those cars were trying to go a lot faster, stretching out, when you get to that junction, you're just right behind them. So it really has made no difference whatsoever. It always reminds me, oh man, I really should drive more efficiently all the time, because you don't actually get anywhere that much slower, and it's a lot more chilled out. But of course, like a human being who's a numpty, when I'm not in this mindset, tend to do the same thing. Will not learn. Okay, through these winding bends here, through the woods, and I'm just trying to keep the same throttle position, basically, instead of going up and down on the throttle, depending on, just keeping it nice and stable, which is not the same as having the sat nav on, which is of course trying to keep the same speed. I don't mind if the speed goes down or up a little bit. Of course, going through a 40 limit here, but just trying to keep that from excessive use of the power pedal. Beautiful day today. Not as warm as it has been, but another lovely day. So a nice wee day for an afternoon off and to head into the hills. I can feel we are getting higher. So, you know, having to use gas. Oh man, I can't stop myself, can I? Having to use the power pretty much all the time to motor along up here. Whereas you'd expect if you're kind of stable, you know, some parts you're just coasting along, but pretty much having to use electrons all the way up here. We are nearly at Braemar, just a couple of miles or so to go, 2.9 miles, and it's still a gorgeous day. So I have stopped a few times along the way just to take a few pictures and just to have a look at some of the sights along the road. So I haven't been the most economically minded, because taking a few of the images, I was driving backwards and forwards, putting the camera up and then going back to pick it up and all that kind of stuff. So there's been a bit of stop and start going on during that time, but it's pretty out here. Lots of flies, that's not so fun. And I think I've managed to get them all out of the car. I'd stopped at one place, and when I got back in the car, I was accompanied by 10 different flies. They're away, thankfully. Just had a long conversation with somebody walking past who was wanting to know about EVs and how they work, and I just told them, you know, I think I've probably only spent in the last 4.5 years about £10 on electricity. And they were like, what? So anyway, right, I am plugged in. There's a leaf next to me here. Now there's a rapid, I don't know if you can see through the windows there's a rapid charger over there, which would not connect. It just kept coming up red on here, so I'm assuming it's some kind of earth problem. Though it wasn't coming up saying battery charging impossible, it just was hanging there. However, there is a 22 kilowatt charger right here, and somebody who's very interested in how this works. And so I have plugged in there, so that's fine. It'll charge up pretty rapidly because I'm going to go get something to eat. So on the way up here, I was doing, let me have a look and see, 13 kilowatt hours, 58.9 miles, 4.33 miles, but so that's the key thing here, the average, 4.33 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, if I come on over here and turn this on, a nice full leaf, which is good. However, I don't think I'm going to be at 97 out of 100, pretty good, my thing here. But there was a lot of climbing, and then, as I say, I was doing quite a bit of sort of just running backwards and forwards as well. Idea is charge up here, reset everything, and then head back and see what it's like. So that is not great for just pootering along on country road, 4.33. So you can tell we've been climbing a lot as we've been going. I would expect that to be well over 5 on the way back. Right, I am going to get something to eat and have a little explore, because it is years since I've been out here in Braemar. Just been for a little wander and got some lunch, and there was a queue in the co-op like half a mile long, which means that by the time I got back to the car to have my lunch, I'm already at 97%. So there we are. I'll have something to eat. By the time I've done that, it's probably cracked up to 100%. I've just unplugged the car, so it's saying 96 miles. That was that 4.33. I'm just going to turn on miles per kilowatt hour, and well, let's just booting up over here. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, average speed, blah blah blah, 58.9 miles, 97 out of 100. So I'll see if I can do a bit better on that on the way back. These are pretty good. Okay. Ooh, reset. Do you want to reset the onboard computer? Yes. Oh, look at that. And it did it over there as well. I didn't know you could do it from there. 4.5 years. Still learning new things. Okay. Home. Boom. Right. Okay. So it actually made very little difference to this over here, 93 miles on there. Eco mode, and I will try and drive a similar way, kind of similar sort of speeds. That's why I wasn't, that's why I was kind of trying to do it in a particular way on the way up, so that I could kind of duplicate it on the way back down. Right. We'll see how much traffic we have as we head down. I don't know if you can hear that, but there is a, whenever I'm turning the steering wheel, there is a definite creakiness from under the bonnet. Sounds like something is just getting a little, it's bound to be another bushing, a bush of some kind, and yeah, it's definitely a bit creaky. Don't notice it when you're driving around, but when you're parking and things, you really do notice it. Really nice neck of the woods up here, very pretty, and still kind of in holiday season. Quite a lot of folks around, and there's just about to be what's called the Braemar gathering this weekend, so I assume there's a lot of people up here for that. So that's tomorrow. So the Queen must be up at Balmoral, because she's usually at that, and there's a big kind of Highland Games. Quite fun. I put out a video yesterday. I finally got around to editing together stuff that I'd recorded like 3 months ago, which oh dear, just a sign of the times, alas. And I was kind of behind the times with a lot of what's been going on as a result. There are two cars in particular that I find really interesting, both from South Korea. So the Hyundai Kona and the Kia Niro. So the Kona is on sale in the UK now, and I believe there is a whole bunch of them on their way here in a boat at the moment. And it is, well, both of them are small SUVs, crossovers. They are, the Kia is a little bit bigger than the Hyundai, about 20 centimeters longer, I think, which is, I think, both a little bit more in the boot and maybe 10 centimeters more between the wheelbase, so a little bit more roomy. But the Kia EV is not on sale yet in the UK. Their drivetrains are the same. And what's really interesting is there's a 40 kilowatt hour version and a 64 kilowatt hour version. So that 64 kilowatt hour version, if you're driving it carefully, will be, well, an easy 250 miles, heading towards 300 miles range, which is fantastic, because it is not that expensive. They've done a really good job in keeping the cost down. I think the Kia Niro will not be just as good. There'll be a few percent difference, it being a bit heavier, a little bit larger. Its acceleration is a fraction slower, 0.2 of a second slower or something like that. But the higher battery, the capacity model, has a more powerful motor, around about 200 horsepower. So that would be fun. I mean, that's a lot. Unless you've got a trick differential at the front, which some hot hatches do, kind of like a limited slip differential. I mean, this car, if you floor it with the wheels bent, will spin up the inside wheel. In the wet, it easily spins up the inside wheel. So I can only imagine flooring the throttle in the Hyundai Kona or Kia Niro will be an exercise in destroying your tires, because it ain't gonna have any kind of fancy limited slip differential. Yeah. So it'd be, but most of the benefit, I guess, is when you're higher speed for overtaking and things like that. You'd really get the benefit. Around town, not so much, unless you've got four-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, so you get the traction benefits. In a front-wheel drive car, it's just going to scrabble away. There's not a lot of that. It would still be a lot faster than this is, though, so that would be fun. Yeah, really good and nice specification, especially the top kind of models. There are some, so I would be if I was looking to replace this in a couple of years' time or something like that, with one of those, which would be fantastic, it would probably be the Kia I would be after, just because it has a little bit more room in the back. And but the Kia doesn't seem to have just as good a specification as the Hyundai. Things like head-up display and stuff like that. And a lot of it's the same, but there are just a few areas like, oh, that's a shame it's not just equivalent across. So I don't know if it's going to be how the price is going to work out. I have to wait and see when it goes on sale. And these are both models that, a bit like the Ioniq, there are different options. You can have petrol, diesel. There is a hybrid version, and now a full EV version is coming. This is very good. I'm impressed by what Hyundai and Kia are doing. On Tesla, since that last video, mamma mia, I mean, it feels a bit like Elon Musk is having some kind of nervous breakdown. And there was quite an interesting article in the Guardian, was it, where an interview with him where he was talking about stress, and you do wonder if he is having some kind of stress-induced issues, because, man, I don't know what is going on. But so I don't think this would have been. This would have all been after my last video. There was the whole thing with the kids that were trapped in the cave, and of course Elon Musk tweets to one of the British rescuers, when the rescuer said, because Elon Musk had gone, and I thought this was good. I mean, it was good trying to use the technology you have in order to create something that might help. You know, it was like a submarine thing that the children could be put in one by one and then pulled through. Now, it turns out that it wouldn't have worked for that situation. But I thought, personally, oh well, that's you know, at least somebody's with, you know, that position, that power, is turning his mind to what they could do to help people in need. So when one of the now, I don't know how much communication there had been between the actual rescuers on the ground and him, or if he just did it and there was a whole sort of publicity side to it. That may have been what kind of hacked off some of the divers. The upshot being that one of the divers said, yeah, thanks but no thanks, it's no use to what we're gonna need it for. And Elon Musk took this the wrong way and accused him, the diver, of being a paedophile. Now he then, of course, there was an uproar about this, and then there was he did kind of backtrack on it, and then I saw something like last week that he'd mentioned it again. I mean, what is he doing? It's just bizarre. And then there was the whole issue about the sale of, or rather the buyback of stock, which is all in the news at the moment because of the huge tax break that I'm just an interlude. So I've been on the road for a while. I'm probably down to about 93%, 94% of the battery, and the range had been, I think it was 92 miles when I left. It's now up to 100 miles. My average is 5.84 miles per kilowatt hour, and I'm averaging 10 miles an hour more at the moment. And I'm not really concentrating because I'm blethering. So I'm just cruising. However, I can feel myself. You just feel the car is not so stressed. It's not having to put so much energy down to cruise along these roads as it was going up the way. Right, where was I? 101 miles now I'm up to. I'm just gaining range. Wonderful. Okay. So yeah, the huge tax break that Trump and the Republicans put through in the United States, this giveaway to the top. I mean, it's disgusting. I mean, it's disgusting for me as a minister, where my whole kind of part of what I'm trying to say to folks is living a life that is about looking out for the least of these, looking out for our brothers and sisters. I mean, this giveaway of money to the top 0.1% or whatever is mind-blowing. It is theft from the poor, the middle class, in order to enrich those who are already wealthy. And so as a result of that, you're seeing a lot of buyback of stock, because a lot of corporations who now have all this money which in their hands that they didn't think they were going to have, can use it to buy back stock, which does nothing if you're a worker or anyone, I mean, it doesn't, it is of no use other than it is a benefit to those who are already rich. So that's all going on, and then you have Tesla start to talk about buying back stock and actually taking the company private again, rather than being a publicly traded company. And this all as part of a way to get at those who had been trying to short the stock, and which simply means you're making a bet the company's going to lose value, and so you're taking a position on the stock and paying money, a lot of money in interest payments to companies in the interim, but you think the stock is going to go down, and then you'll make your killing. If you want to know a bit more about shorting stock, watch the movie The Big Short. It's really interesting, humorous, and enlightening. But in the process of doing this, Elon Musk, this is, so he's kind of trying to make a point, and it did then completely shift the stock price. But what he did was, as far as I'm aware, illegal. To play like that with comments without there being all kinds of other information. I mean, this was a tweet without there being all this other information available to stockholders, to all the rest. So I mean, again, this is like not thinking it all through properly. I mean, it is very Trumpian in just put a tweet out there and don't care about the repercussions, trying to make a point in the moment when there are due processes that you should work through. And I don't know, it seems really bizarre. So then it came out that it was going to be, was it Saudi Arabia or, I can't remember now, my apologies. One of the Middle Eastern countries was going to be the source of all the money. United Arab Emirates, maybe? I can't remember who it was. A huge oil, that's where they've made all their money, is in oil. And so then again, like, what is going on here? And I mean, then Tesla become a private company owned predominantly by an oil company. What exactly is happening? So yeah, I find the whole thing rather confusing as to why this was happening, what was the purpose of it, and all of that. So that's Elon Musk. Good to see that the Tesla Model 3s, the production has ramped up on those, so there are more of them being sold at the moment. That's good to see. How long that... now, which way should I go on the way back? I'll maybe go through Balata. There are two ways. You can bypass the town, which is what I did on the way up, or you can go through the town. I'm going to go through the town on the way home, partly because last time I did a video where we came out here, we had lunch, or we visited what was the cafe in the old station, and then I think it was the next day it burned down, and that was a few years ago now. Must be 2 or 3 years ago, 3 years ago anyway, and it just reopened a couple of weeks ago, I think, not long ago, after the renovations being made to it, so that's good. I'm still at 101 miles, and I'm up to nearly 6. I'm at 5.96 miles per kilowatt hour at the moment, and I'm over now because I'm coming downhill quite steeply into Balata, so I'm regenning all the way down here, and I've just throttle off. It's at full regen without the brakes, and it's just holding at like 30 miles an hour all the way down into town. Yeah, so good to see the Tesla Model 3s coming off. Of course, I don't think they're being delivered here yet. I don't think I've seen any here. And as I said in the last video, it's all the expensive ones that are going out. So who knows if they'll ever make the $35,000 ones that were the kind of hook when it was launched, and which made it very interesting to me. That's a bit more, but not that much more than the cost of one of the Hyundai Konas or Kia Niros will be. Right, here we're going over the railway line, and to the left will be, oh yeah, it has been really done up. Yeah, sorry you can't see this, but there was a whole glass frontage on the other side, so it's like the old station at the front, but then on the other side, which would be the platform side, it looked very nice. Glossy glass. Well, that whole jaunt down into Balata, you come quite down because you're coming, down the valley. I'm now up to 106 miles on my range, and my average is 6.45. Now it's 4.33 on the way the whole journey up. Now that's going to come down, I'm sure, as I head on, because I just had this nice steep hill down, but pretty good. frustrating, and it might have ruined my score. There was a post office van in front of me for a few miles, and then he suddenly slammed on the brakes to turn, so I had to slam on the brakes behind. There was quite a nice gap, but even so, I will be really annoyed if that one incident stops me from getting a perfect score. That is all it takes usually, is one thing that is out beyond what you can control. I am, however, still at 6.32 miles per kilowatt hour, and I've done let me skip through the 27.5 miles. Not bad. Where am I at? I'm cycling through. Average speed of 38.2 miles per hour. Yeah, so it's still about the same, about 10 miles an hour faster average speed, and nearly 2 miles per kilowatt hour better on the average consumption. Other cars that have come out recently, more about the Jaguar I-Pace, as folks are getting their hands on them and driving them. That looks like a really nice car. Of course, ka-ching, you pay for it, but yeah, looks fun. It looks pretty compact. I like the design of it though, the kind of wheels at each corner, so the long wheelbase. It looks different, looks more modern somehow than some of the other kind of crossover type vehicles. So yeah, I like it. I like the way it looks, and it obviously goes pretty well. Not sure how efficient it is, but it's a heavy car. Yeah, I can dream. So back to EV driving, being very range sensitive in your driving. I mentioned earlier that I try not to regen as much as possible, to coast as much as I can. There is a guy turning around in the middle of the road. Are you gonna go? Come on. I'm not having a whole lot of success without using the brake. There is no accounting for other drivers. Suddenly somebody decided in the middle of the main road to do a 3-point turn right in front of me, in their Subaru noise machine with an exhaust that looks like it's about 4 inches wide at the back. Yeah. Now, so sometimes you have to slow down. So on this country road, you're coming to little villages and towns like this one, and so there's a 30 mile an hour limit. So what I would tend to do, and a lot of these you're coming down a hill into them, so just the nature of them, I would tend to let the car, rather than just sort of slowly letting the car come down. If I know I've got quite a, like a 20 mile an hour drop to do, actually to do that fairly fast, like totally off the throttle, and let it get the kind of its maximum rate of regen down to 30, and then coast. And now, whether or not this makes a difference, this is just my own little mind working. The car is more efficient when it's charging at a higher rate. So if you're getting regen of 2 to 3 kilowatts, it's not very efficient, just the way the inverter and battery pack works. It's when it's 7 or above, it's more efficient, so you're getting more energy actually into the battery pack. So that is my reasoning for, if I know I've got quite a big, rather than further back, letting it slowly come down in speed over a wider period. I try and cruise along, coasting as much as I can at like a higher speed, and then come down to the lower speed, which maybe like on this road is kind of from 50 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour down to 30 quickly at a high rate of regen, and then again kind of coasting as much as possible thereafter. I'm still over 6, but not completely. It's a nice Porsche there. I was at the British Touring Cars last weekend, and yeah, the Porsches sounded just like that. The Porsche Super Cup. They sound so different to the other cars. The other cars are because they just sound so precise. It's like you would imagine a Swiss watch would sound if it's a car, whereas the others are all noise, lots of noise. I enjoyed watching James and Kate doing one of their reviews and it was on the Mercedes B-Class, the electric drive version, or whatever they call it. It has like 101 names. That's the car that has when Mercedes owned a chunk of Tesla, and so Tesla did some of the engineering for it, and it's a frustrating car, because it could be so good. And James and Kate said that every review says it. I mean, it's a really simple problem it has. The charging is not right. They didn't put rapid charging on it, so you can either charge at 3 kilowatts single phase or 11 kilowatts triple phase on AC, and that's it. Not even 7 kilowatts on single phase. It's just crippled, utterly crippled as a result, which is such a shame, because it would be a really nice car. It is a really nice car, and those, I mean, we've had a couple of Mercedes, a bit of a soft spot for them. They're such good cars, and it would be a really good family car. You see, so I was talking about the Hyundai Kona and the Kia Niro, and they are very fashionable because it's part of this sort of SUV crossover thing, which I just don't get. I just don't. It doesn't do anything for me at all. I quite like big old chunky four-wheel drives, you know, but the kind of crossover thing, I don't know why I'm saying this. I drove one for years. I had a Mercedes R-Class, which was like one of the first kind of crossover cars, I guess, with the Chrysler Pacifica. However, that was a very practical car because it was so big. Not practical as far as economy went, but the B-Class is just a really well-designed family car. So it is a hatchback that's a bit it reminds me of the Golf Plus. It's a family hatchback that's a little bit bigger, so a little bit taller, a bit more space inside, very practical as a result. And has a good battery pack, you know, so yeah, 100 miles or so, it's fine. It should be fine with it. But it's just, you can't do long journeys without it taking hours to charge. I just don't understand what they were. Well, no, I do understand. It's a purely a exercise in politics. But you kind of feel like, well, if it is that one, why not just make it really crap? You know, why make it so good and yet crippled by one thing? Really infuriating. Because the prices of those second hand now, they're a great buy for a family car, but you couldn't recommend it to anyone really, unless they definitely had a second car and were, you know, I mean, it would work for us for most of the time, but then we just couldn't do any of the longer journeys, which I do in this, because it does both. It covers both, you know. It's yeah. So it was a good review, reminder of that car is really a great car, and such a shame that it was just wasted. It will mean, if it does fit a particular niche for somebody, they're going to be getting a real steal buying now in the next couple of years second hand one that's maybe 4 or 5 years old. It'll do them for many years more, and in lots of comfort. Such a shame. Such a shame. I've not quite been able to hold on to my 6 miles per kilowatt hour for my average. Partly not wanting to, you know, trying to keep with the flow of the traffic. So I'm at 5.9, but that's still not too bad. 37.6 miles per hour average, and I have used, where are we? 9 kilowatt hours of energy for 54.3 miles. Yeah. I'd not really thought about this, but I could try my see if I could beat my range. Of course, I'm not even at half the battery, obviously, and the rest would all have to be around Aberdeen. The hunt for somewhere to park, never straightforward. So look and see what we got. A power cable in the way here. So yeah, 64 miles left on the range. I mean, none of this is totally stunning. It was more the difference of the going what we're doing. So 9 kilowatt hours, use 56.7 miles. 5.96 miles per kilowatt hour at an average speed of 36 miles an hour. So yeah, not totally slow. That's okay. Oh yeah, I am I don't know what's been happening, but I seem to have been using the Zoe a lot more recently, and I'm way over. The first few years I was totally fine on my mileage, but now I'm seem to be way over my miles. So I've still got another what, four months of the year to go, and I am yeah, I'm only like 1,000 miles, well, 1,400 miles away from my limit for the year. So that could happen in another month. So I seem to have put on like 6,000 miles in the space of maybe 4 months. I don't know what's happened. Lots of driving around, I guess. Right, I'm turning off. 98 out of 100. So not perfect. Those are going to be those. I had 2 occasions I had to slam on the brakes. Bet you that's what did that. Because otherwise it should have been pretty spot on. However, not too bad. All right, I'm going to pack up. And then yeah, I'll see how I'm doing, whether I want to just keep this charge going and see how far I can go on it. What was my last one? 122 miles, something like that. Bit of fun.